Groundbreaker is an all-in-one suite of tools for small to medium-sized commercial real estate investment firms that raise outside capital. And it helps them increase productivity by automating fundraising, reporting, and investor relations workflows.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odom and Stephen Silverman.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odom, along with Stephen Silverman. Stephen, what's new?
Well, what's new is really more of the same. You know, today we're going to look at the investment environment and how to manage those investments and how to control the capital that you receive and communicate with investors. And it's always been such a tedious task, and things are improving. You used to do that a lot like 18, 20 years ago, and it was just a bottomless pit. And now with technology, it's changing.
A lot of requirements on the SEC side, private placement memorandums, and how you communicate with your investors in a syndication is very onerous. And we're going to talk to somebody who's providing a service that will help to consolidate and organize some of those reporting tasks to clients, to tenants, to SEC, et cetera. So we're excited to hear about that. First, wanted to talk a little bit about, I'm going to jinx it, Stephen, but we've heard from so many people that office is dead and it's going away. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I don't want to jinx it too badly, but I'm in the process of doing not one, but two office deals, which would make the biggest 1/4 of office leasing I've ever had in my career. So it just goes to show you, there's a lot of craziness happening right now in the market, and office is not dead. We're still doing deals, surprisingly enough. If you'd asked me that question 2 months ago, would I be doing any deals before we had a mitigating drug, I would say it would be unlikely. And then here we are. We're close to getting not one, but two fairly substantive deals done. So pretty excited about that.
Well, just while we're on there, that's more of an accomplishment given the midst of this COVID crisis that we're still in the midst of.
Yeah, no doubt. I wanted to give a shout out to, he doesn't really, or she, I'm not sure which, Stephen, because there's no name here, but they did leave us a review on the Apple iTunes store. GGHGRS FHJGGH says, I found this particular podcast to be one of the best about investing in Florida. Interviews have been extremely informative. I will be doing 1031 exchanges this summer, selling properties in Utah and investing in multifamily in the Gulf Coast area between Tampa and Sarasota. That's a terrific review. I really appreciate. I'm not going to try to repeat the name again, Stephen, but it's a terrific review. And those things help us phenomenally. What they do is when we're out trying to find new guests that can come on the show, they will go to see who's paying attention and whether it's worth their time to come on. So those reviews definitely help. If you've not done so, please go to the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store and leave us a review. It certainly not only helps us, but it helps you as well. Stephen, we ready to talk about a little syndication?
Let's get with it. Today we have with us Jake Marmulstein. Jake is the founder of Groundbreaker. Before founding Groundbreaker, Jake held a number of roles involving real estate and technology, supporting the growth of early-stage digital technology ventures while working with the government on foreign direct investment by Fortune 500 companies. In 2011, Jake started his career in real estate, underwriting hotel investments for Watermark Capital Partners. He graduated from Cornell University with a major in hospitality management and minored in real estate. Jake, welcome to the Invest Florida Show.
Thank you, Stephen.
Hey, Jake, really appreciate the time you're investing with us today. Why don't you give us sort of a 30,000-foot overview of Groundbreaker and what it's doing for the real estate industry?
Sure, Eric. So Groundbreaker is an all-in-one suite of tools for small to medium-sized commercial real estate investment firms that raise outside capital. And it helps them increase productivity by automating fundraising, reporting, and investor relations workflows. And it also increases investor satisfaction by making information more accessible to investors so they can get it conveniently on their mobile device or their computer and without having to rely on email to learn about how their investments are performing.
So talk to us a little bit about specific things that you guys are doing. A lot of it's distribution of information, correct?
Yeah, so the software really has a variety of components, but in general, think of it in replacing Excel as your system of record. In Groundbreaker, you would store all of your investors, all the entity information, the subscription documents, any of your deal documents that are going to be used in the marketing process. And then all the contributions and distributions, K1s, would live in Groundbreaker too. And you would be able to give certain access to investors to the portal so that they can check their portfolio. And you'd also be able to run workflows like being able to raise money for a deal. So you can put a deal into the system. You can invite the investors that you want to be able to see it, who you have already in your network, or new investors that you've met that are accredited and you've built a relationship with, and you can then allow them to express interest in the deal, put down an investment amount, sign documents, and fund. Once that information is collected in Groundbreaker, it's used for reporting purposes, and it can also reflect their ownership percentage, and all the information is tied to an investment entity in the system, so you can go and see who all the investors are in the deal, how much capital they've contributed, and what they own. And so it makes that process of collecting the capital really easy for the investor and also for the sponsor. And it sets a structure for you when you're raising money to be able to make sure that you've collected the right signatures and you've got the wires in, and that the investors have been communicated to when the deal is closed. After that part, there's also an investment management component to it as well that I can talk to you about.
And, most syndicators, folks that are just getting started into syndication, after raising the funds, the next thing they're worried about is how are they going to manage the investors? And it's an issue. This is a big solution for that type of investor and syndicator that's getting into it, and it's solving a lot of these compliance-related issues. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about how you saw this as a need and the market that you were targeting?
Yeah, so it wasn't clear that we'd evolve into the whole, it was kind of writing on the wall once the whole entire picture made sense to me, but it grew over time. Initially, I was really underwriting deals in this company, Watermark Capital Partners, and I had a tremendous amount of work on my plate in between underwriting, packaging the deals into materials that we would then send to our investors, and keeping everything up to date in Excel as we went through a raise. And then components that related to the unique details on each investor, and then the requirements to service them just kept adding up. And I remember having an internal server that had tons and tons of folders and tons of documents inside of those folders. And it was impossible to find information. And that was the problem of not having access to the information, an easy way to find it, where we were just having a lot of deals that we had to track and no way to easily manage everything. So I thought there must be software or a better way to do this in today's technological world, but there really wasn't. Big institutional firms sometimes contract the development team to build their own solution in-house because they have a lot of money to throw at it, or they hire additional analysts and accounting personnel to handle some of the work in a manual fashion. But for the small to medium-sized companies that really don't have that ability to take on the additional overhead, there's really nothing. So we just identified an opportunity where there's a lot of companies underserved, the technology is available, and we could build a solution that can come off the shelf and mirror these workflows to give transparency and efficiency in the process.
So, Jake, one of the questions I have is, the biggest issue always facing anybody, like we find a deal, you get it under contract. I mean, how does your software or can it help people in actually finding investors?
Yeah, I got that question all the time in the early days, and we actually had to make a choice whether we were going to be a capital raising company or a software company. We decided to just pick one and not try to do both so that we could really excel at the one thing that we were doing. And we decided to be a software company. So we don't give any investor access or a pool to investors or even, serve opportunities to investors of any kind. We're purely a software player. But Groundbreaker might help a company to look more professional. And so if they're going out and they don't have a strong track record or they don't have one, being able to have a system and an infrastructure like Groundbreaker certainly elevates your brand image and can translate to a higher degree of trust.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did my first syndicated deal in 2002. And I think I probably taken an entire storage unit at one of Stephen's storage facilities full of private placement memorandums and compliance documentation. It's amazing how far it's come in, 18 years. And I know now, like when we have issues that go back to, well, what did the PPM say? Well, my God, the deal was done 14 years ago. Why? How would I know what was in that PPM? To be able to have that information or, what kind of correspondence went out. I wished I had that type of a service that would be able to catalog all that information. Going back on some of my early deals, I unfortunately, we barely had internet in 2002. There was not going to be any software solution for that. That's for sure.
So, Jake, we've spoken a little bit about Groundbreaker, but you're in the technology space. And can you talk to us a little bit about some of the technology that's becoming important, that's affecting real estate? I mean, our way of working's changing now with the COVID virus, but there are new things coming on that maybe you think we should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think technology has a potential to really make competitive advantages between companies. And the more well integrated that technology is into a company's operation, the more efficient they will be with their cost structure internally and their revenue and their ability to be competitive in the market. So some example of that would be the virtual tours. It's becoming a thing, especially for millennials. They're totally cool renting a place sight unseen. And I think the virtual tour can give companies who are trying to rent their units and a competitive edge over companies who don't have virtual tours available. People are attracted to convenience in the millennial generation, so being able to add more convenience to the way of doing business will be a competitive advantage moving forward. And so if you extend that to property management as well, there's companies that offer services through a mobile application where if your sink has a leak or something else breaks, you have a way of getting in touch with a service provider from your phone, and they are able to come in and fix it as part of a service that's included in the rental agreement. And it works out really well for property owners too, because they get something that gives their tenant the ability to create requests to the property, so that the tenant doesn't have to go to the property owner to make the request, but the property owner can still approve the request digitally. So there's a more efficient way of communicating. The problem gets addressed faster before there's more damage on the asset, and then the group that gets the lead and accepts the bid, there's a way of tracking the satisfaction and the job that they did, and making sure that you use the best service providers, and that those service providers are in a competitive marketplace as well. So their costs might be compressed with the volume that might be generated from having a more fair and more efficient marketplace of services. So there's just two examples, but I can think of a bunch more that I think are affecting the way that consumers rent and property owners provide services in a more convenient and efficient way.
How about in this environment with technology of building teams? You're not sitting in front of somebody all the time. Are there any solutions or things we should be looking at to help us manage better?
Yeah, selfishly, I'd plug Groundbreaker, But I think that the system, I'll give you guys an example of how this made sense. I was talking with a law firm the other day that is using us. And the reason why they want to use us is because now that everything is remote, all their files and everything are in different places. And it's very hard for them to collaborate as a team. And they render fund administration services for their clients. So they use Groundbreaker with those clients. And they use our system to process the subscriptions and pay distributions and everything. But it keeps all the data in one place. And it makes it searchable. So you can collaborate with people and you can see what the other person has done in the solution, if they paid a distribution or if an investor went through making an offer or going through a subscription. It's all available to everyone in the company. And those kinds of things aren't just held in emails where you're CC'd and you just get a huge inbox that's blown up with emails that then you now have to transfer to an Excel spreadsheet calculating the contributions that have come in, So that's one thing that I think drives a lot of efficiency with syndicators. The other thing is if anyone here, uses a task management system, I think collaborating on tasks remotely, we're going to add that feature into Groundbreaker. But in the meantime, using something like an Asana or even using the Google Drive system and all that they give you with Google Docs and planning your documents is really useful. Zoom has been really useful. We were a customer a long time ago, but now I can't count a week that's gone by that I don't have at least 10 Zoom meetings. Just the convenience of being able to connect with people and do it over video as well. So there's even more conversations that are going deeper because you're connecting with people not over the phone but over video, and people are more comfortable doing that now because of the lack of personal interaction, which I think is fascinating.
So talk to us a little bit. Let's take a hypothetical, and this is a typical listener that we have. They're buying a 250 unit apartment complex, and they're 15, 20 investors, whatever it is, 35, 40 investors, whatever. And they're looking for someone to be able to handle their back end and be able to help them be able to distribute that information. Talk about the onboarding process and how you would explain the whole system to them and the benefits that they would have.
So starting out, what we would do is have them give us access under confidentiality and everything, their investors and all the investments that they've had historically with these investors. So what we'd be doing is populating the portfolio for each member in their investor base, and then getting that data, including the documents, into the Groundbreaker solution so that when the investor logs in for the first time, first of all, they would be able to onboard the investors at launch, and investors create their own password for themselves. Then they log in and they see their whole portfolio with every investment they've had and their ownership percentage, contributions, distributions, reports, K1s, the whole thing. And then when they're doing the raise for the new deal, they would already have the investor accounts input into the software. So for investors filling out a subscription agreement, they don't need to enter their EIN or social security number, address, and all that stuff. We get that during the import. So investors would maybe be on the phone with the sponsor. The sponsor knows how much each investor is going to invest, or if they have an idea or they don't, they add the investors to the list. They can do pre-approved offers and type in the investment amount for each person so that they're careful about how they're dividing the equity in the deal. And then they're going to draft an email out of Groundbreaker or whatever other system they use, which is personalized. It can be a mail merge. So you write just one email, get it out to everybody, and a link. And then the investor logs in. They can see the offering, download all the documents. They'd be able to then go through the process of answering investor accreditation questions and signing the subscription docs. All they have to do is click to sign, type their name, and the rest is already filled out. And once they're done with that, the sponsor can approve the subscription and send out the call for funds. So if you're the sponsor and you've got everything soft circled or signed for, but you want to call for funds a little bit later, you can do that as well with the system. Approve every subscription. Our system automatically sends an email out to each investor telling them that it's time to remit funds, prompting them to log back into the portal and execute that wire. or ACH transfer. And that's the process. Once they're in, the sponsor confirms the investment has been received. They countersign the docs. All the documents that are executed get uploaded into the portal automatically. So the investors have a copy of their investment, the date that they invested, they see the signed subscription agreement, and they're going to have their ownership percentage reflected as well as their contribution amount in their investor dashboard. And for the sponsor, you'll be able to see all of your investors, their ownership, contribution amounts, and all the signed documentation as well.
So we've just gone through a really difficult, we're still in the middle of this whole COVID-19. We don't know when it's going to end. And before we just sign off, can you speak about any lessons that as a technology company or any of us could have learned from this?
I think the best thing to do with situations and uncertainty is to talk about it with people. So when this whole situation happened, we were all wondering what were you going to do and how are you going to handle it as a business. And we had an all hands meeting with the whole team and sort of talked about overall strategy, where we're going as a business, reiterating the path that we're taking, talking about the changes that we would make and adjustments that we would make. And we did this on like March 15th. We didn't wait. Many companies, they laid off employees, and you could just read the headlines over and over again. Lyft lays off 17% of staff, and so lays off 20% of staff. And so we just talked very frankly about what we needed to do in reaction to this, and we did it early and before anything else came out. So there was no uncertainty internally here at Groundbreaker. And I took care of that very well, I think, by communicating clearly and early on to not leave any room for doubt.
So if people want to contact you and learn a little bit about Groundbreaker, how can they reach you?
So yeah, you guys could go to our website, groundbreaker.co, and go to the instant demo form. That will make us know that you're interested in our software. You can watch our demo videos, and from there you can book a meeting to get in touch directly with me, and we can have a call and learn more about each other.
Jake, really appreciate your time. It sounds like I'm going to take a look at it. I wish there was something like this that had been around 20 years ago. Would have saved a lot of aggravation in terms of communication and documentation compliance. But it sounds like it provides a great service, so I'm interested in trying to peel back the onion and learn a little bit more myself. So do appreciate you coming on and spend some time with us this afternoon. Is there anything else before we let you go today?
Just that I would say with my lesson, I've seen a lot of companies that manage assets not telling their tenants what their policy is going to be with COVID. That's just an interesting point. I'd love to see how it panned out for companies who really communicated early versus companies who maybe waited and tried to see who would pay rent. Just something that I thought about. I'm not confident enough with the numbers to tell people that what I did is the way to do things, but I want to see the data.
Perfect. Jake, really appreciate your time today and look forward to checking it out with you a little bit later.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Jake.
And that was Jake Marmulstein from Groundbreaker. Stephen, what were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts were life can sometimes get a little tedious. There's a lot of mundane work that's required in managing syndications and communicating. And the fact that there's software out there that can help you spend your time on other more productive things is really exciting, actually.
Yeah, to organize it. The SEC rules as it pertains to private placements can be daunting for someone, whether you be an inexperienced or experienced investor and syndicator. So it's interesting. I want to take a closer look at the Groundbreaker software, and maybe it's something we can weave into our programs that we have. Stephen, Jake was very informative. Where can we find other informative guests?
The place to go is our website, www.investfloridashow.com. Also, download the apps and listen while you're mobile or you're in the gym.
Guys, as always, we appreciate the time that you invest with us each and every episode. And until next time, hasta la vista.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Stephen Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida Show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida Show.